Welcome, everybody, to the big show. This is going to be a fun one. I'm glad you're here because we're going to talk about out with the old, in with the new. Some kind of exciting stuff going on that we're going to go through. We also talk about the coaching meeting we just had and you know, what happened there that was pretty special. And there's some stuff in the news.
Definitely.
That and much, much more coming up on Service Drive Revolution. How much fun was the coaching meeting?
It was a blast. It was really nice. A little warm.
Yeah, it was 110 one day.
Yeah. No messing around.
In Dallas, Texas.
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 Yes, which is Russian for Texas. So I did have a complaint about my flight.
Oh, we have a box out there, and
Yeah.
it says comments, complaints, and whatever. You could write it on that and put it in there. We check it once a year.
Why do that when I can do it while we're filming? So I'm flying out there, and I went out a day earlier than everybody else, and just to get the lay of the land. And it's super interesting because I get on the plane, super pumped. I got upgraded to first class. So I'm sitting there in like seat 1C, like one of the ones that you really like.
A sign that you fly too much.
Right. That I know what yours are, or that I get upgraded.
Like whenever somebody's bragging about getting upgraded or their mileage like club
that
thing,
they've hit the highest level.
I'm like, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. So I get upgraded, and then like the plane's all loaded and ready to go, and then we're just waiting for the pilot to get on the plane, and then finally the first guy comes in, and he's wearing like those dark Ray Charles glasses, and has like a what they call a mobility cane. Do you know what that is? Like for blind people? And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a fun flight. So he hops into the cockpit, but we still need another pilot before we can go. So this other guy hops in, same thing. And like he's glasses and mobility cane, and he finally makes his way into the cockpit. And so I asked the flight attendant, I'm like, hey, are we okay here? Are those guys both blind? And she's like, yeah, but believe it or not, they're the best pilots in the company. I'm like, okay, I'm trying not to judge things. So we taxi out, we get to the runway, and we're about to take off. And like, you know, there's this normal cadence where when you're going down the runway and then eventually the plane lifts up. Well, that didn't happen. So all of a sudden, like we just kept running. We're getting to the end of the runway, and then people start screaming on the plane. And then all of a sudden, sure enough, plane goes into the air. Have a normal flight, land, and nobody says anything about it. And then I'm getting off the plane, and I hear the one pilot say to the other, he's like, "Man, if we're on a flight and they don't scream, we'll never know when to take off."
Is this an American Airlines joke?
It can be.
Was it American Airlines?
It was American Airlines.
Yeah, I know. that describes every American airline experience I've had.
So yeah, so they're blind.
That's hilarious. So coaching meeting, if you weren't there, it's hard to describe what you missed because it was kind of a intimate meeting in a sense.
Yeah, it was next level in terms of the way that we connected with the group. It was amazing.
Yeah.
People left with a lot of thoughts. I'm going to guess there was a lot of reflecting over the weekend.
Yeah. Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of conversations. I don't know, like those sort of experiences, you always want more. Like you always, I don't know how to explain it, but you want more of it, I guess.
Yeah, well,
you don't want it to end.
And that was the thing going out, is everyone's like, when's the next one? It's like, yes, that's what we need. That's what we want. The
kind of fun thing, I guess, it's interesting, like some of the stuff we do, how it's kind of hard to put into words, right? But the thing that really showed is when the elite group went to do their separate event. So when we have a coaching meeting, the elite group usually spins off the second day, and we do something like we go into a business and analyze their business, or we go do an experience. So we've done everything from rage rooms and, doing that, and then them opening up their books and kind of showing us their business and their financials and their marketing and all that, to a guy who does tours all over the world, and he gave us a JFK tour.
Oh, that was a couple of years ago in Dallas. That was great.
Done a chain of breweries that was fascinating.
Sommelier was one of my favorite ones. Yeah. Remember when we had Dylan Proctor?
So this one, and we have somebody in our office, Patricia. She's incredible at curating these sort of things. So she always comes up with these ideas that you wouldn't expect. But she found an artist who does these kind of corporate training in her artist loft, where she'll have, anywhere between 5 and I think like 30 people come in, and then she has you paint. And it's like a discovery of yourself and creativity and getting past your fears and that sort of thing. But also, her business model. It was interesting because the elite group ended up helping her more, I think, than what we learned, because they were helping her with marketing and different things. Like,
right. They're teaching her about how to run the business.
And a couple of our coaches
strategies.
were there too, and they were giving her some ideas. But she said that she's never had a group come in and be that open and just go for it. And I think that was an outcome of the content we did the day before about kind of a recipe or an architecture, which is from the new leadership book. So when we were going, you and I had a couple meetings talking about the content for the coaching meeting, basically. Like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to do? Also, you had the coaches present the boot camp the day before. So
that's right.
If you don't kind of know our system, or you're new to the Chris Collins world, when we do these quarterly meetings, the day before we do a new customer boot camp. Although it's been a trend lately that a lot of people go back through the boot camp.
That's right.
Which ends up being like a really smart thing. Like, what they get out of it the second time is pretty cool.
Yep.
And so I think you had over 20 in there, but I think 2 of them were there for the second time.
There was more than that, but 28 total, but there was like 4 for their second time. It was pretty impressive.
So you had the coaches present different parts of the boot camp.
That's right.
So either the part that they are the best at, or, you just kind of split up some of the content. But it was a great exercise for them to speak in front of a room and teach and share their knowledge, but also just a great team building thing for us internally, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun prepping for that. So the coaches all came in the day before the boot camp, and then we essentially sat in the room and role played through. Like, it was not unlike if you have an advisor and you're practicing with them while they're doing their presentation. So it was the same thing. And I do think that when first off, I think speaking in front of a room is harder than people think it is. And the second thing is that when you do it and you start to get really good at it, it builds a confidence that kind of leaks into other parts of your coaching. Yeah. So there was a lot of upswing to that.
One thing too that I really loved is how the coaches were kind of with their clients, and how it really doesn't matter who the coach is. The clients kind of end up having this "that's my coach" thing.
They do.
And they kind of stick up for, gravitate towards, or, it's kind of I don't know, it's endearing. It's sweet.
Yeah.
It's sweet.
The coach is getting they're definitely getting the vote for homecoming court.
It's also funny, I had a couple people comment about how the coach that was assigned to them. So they would say, hey, I want to thank you so much. You're really, you're really smart or intuitive or whatever they're insinuating because you assigned me the perfect coach. And then the first thing I say is, well, I don't do that. Christian does. But Christian is very smart and intuitive with that. But whether it's just worked out or you are psychic, it does seem like who you've assigned has worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I would say most of the time it works out really well. And there's a lot of things that go into selecting a coach.
Yeah, it's not an accident.
Nope.
Yeah, it's great. But the feedback was great. Like,
that makes me so
and
happy.
it was very very fun.
And I'm so proud of our team because they took that assignment dead seriously. Like, in the way that they got that good that fast. It took me a lot longer to get better at presenting in front of a room. They were pretty.
So that surprised you, but it doesn't surprise me because I've been kind of blown away when we do our internal book reports, how competitive they are with each other and how they show up with these PowerPoints. So we internally will take a book and then we assign a chapter, well, depending on the way the book breaks up. But basically everybody gets a section or a chapter of the book to do a book report on. And then we go around on Zoom and they will present their part of the book. And the idea is that by the end of it, it's like we've all read the book. And also, I think most of them probably read the whole book, but I would hope it would inspire them to read the whole book, right?
Yeah, I would agree that most of them read it.
But they will go way over the top with their PowerPoints, with the design of it. Like, they put a lot of thought into it because they're very competitive. Like, I think, there's a couple coaches that we have that set the tone, and then everybody kind of now has surpassed those coaches. And I won't say their names because I don't want them to feel like they've been surpassed, but they've kind of been surpassed.
Yeah. I think the funniest
thing, some of the new people have surpassed them.
The day before, we pulled stuff out because there was no way we could get through everything they came up with.
Oh, I can imagine. They wanted to teach everything.
They did. Yeah. And they just...
you're limited on time.
Yeah.
And you ran over anyways.
I did.
It was so great. So fun. So incredible experience. So, I didn't finish my story. I'm all over the place. I apologize, like usual. We talked about the content, like the main content of the meeting, and we had some ideas, and then I said, I'd really like to try out some of this new content from the leadership book, and that ends up being what we did, and it was magic. It worked great. Yeah. I'm so excited about that.
I would say that meeting affected people on a whole level that I don't know that I've seen too many times.
I don't think the world is ready for this book.
Yeah.
Like, every leadership book that I know of or that I've read is small talk. Like, how when you get in the Uber and they're like, how you doing today?
Where'd you come from?
You
in town for business?
Then you go check in the hotel and they're like, hey, how are you? Where are you
How was your flight?
How was your flight? Yeah, that's what most leadership books are compared to this. And the way that it's presented is easy and unexpected. Like, most of our books are on purpose are created to be easy to read, page turners, right? That you just kind of get in a rhythm. All of that is taken into consideration when we do something. And so I think the format of it and the content of it is completely different. And
so you know why that is? It's because some people are like, oh, I need a leadership book. But what we think about is the end user and work backwards. Like, what do they need? And then we work backwards and create the product. Whereas I think a lot of people are like, oh, no, I need a leadership book because there's opportunity in the marketplace. So they just do a thing where I believe that if you took 90% of the leadership books out there and just jumbled the covers around, they would all be the same book.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So there's nothing that's thinking about the end user and how do we create better leaders, better humans.
So I'm excited about the book. And we'll talk about that more in a second when you're done with the news.
this is interesting because you just kind of segued perfectly into it. But our friends at Hyundai, they just made a $55 million deal to put their name on the Georgia Tech football field. Do you remember the mascot of Georgia Tech?
Well, I know Georgia is a bulldog.
That's right.
But Georgia Tech, I don't know.
I believe they are the Yellow Jackets.
Oh. How's that significant to a Korean manufacturer?
Not quite sure yet, other than the Korean manufacturer does get stung sometimes after the fact. So
Because of recalls on engines?
So do you know how much they spent last year on recalls? On the engine recalls?
How much?
It was pushing $1 trillion.
No! How can they afford that?
I don't know.
$1 trillion on
Close
recalls?
to $1 trillion on engine recalls is how much it costs.
That's a real stat?
Yeah. Well, they're also
Mamacita.
So the reason that they made the deal with Georgia Tech is that they're building a $5.5 billion EV factory, battery plant in Savannah, Georgia.
Hey, can we talk about something funny?
What? Why would you do that?
How many Kia dealerships get on a strategy session, and when you ask them like, "Hey, so what's going on?" they say, "We need advisor training."
Oh, quite a few.
And what they need is 7 techs.
Yes.
They got engines laying around. Like if you're working in a different manufacturer, the one thing about they got engines
Right.
everywhere.
And I don't care how much you train an advisor, it doesn't change the fact that like if it's 3 months to get your
Sooner
engine
or later,
done,
you got to get the work done.
you got to get the work done. So
Yeah.
it's funny. Yeah, they feel like it's one thing and then it's another.
They're like, our
but-
advisors they need training and they don't communicate. And you're like, yeah, they're scared.
Like we're just trying to keep them from committing suicide when they leave. Like it's a
Or the
rough thing.
turnover at advisors. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's but it's funny to see. We've got a couple of dealers that have figured it out, and the way that they have a really good way that they run the engines through, and believe it or
we
not,
we got some incredible Kia dealers in our coaching group.
so many
Smart
stores
dealers, too.
Yeah, and so many of them went from losing a lot of money to making a lot of money in just crazy time. The turnaround time is really fast on those because they just figure out the recipe really quickly. So yeah, kudos to our clients that are Hyundai and Kia dealers. It's fun to watch. So yeah, Hyundai Stadium for Georgia Tech.
Great.
All right. So next in the news, GM, not Ford, GM,
General Motors
is about to cut 200 engineering positions amid strategic evaluation. I wonder what the math is on this because they're cutting 200 and they're trying to save $2 billion.
So this is a while ago. So what do you think? What do you think engineers make a year now? Like 200?
Yeah, probably.
So yeah.
That's probably a healthy cut out of that budget. Yeah,
Real healthy.
they're trying to reduce costs by $2 billion, or 1/500th of what Tesla pays or Hyundai pays for engines. But yeah, they're cutting out 200 engineering positions. It's pretty interesting. But their new strategy is called "Winning with Simplicity."
How's that go over when you get laid off?
Yeah,
we got a slogan for your layoff. Winning with simplicity. You're complicated.
It's simple.
And we want simple.
Where you used to go yesterday, you don't go there anymore. You just stay home.
What we want to do is we want to cut back on the engineering.
And not over-engineer the cars?
You need engineers to do anything. You know how many engineers it takes to make an iPhone?
Oh.
So imagine a car.
Right. That's a good point.
Like Tesla just bought HP's old campus in Silicon Valley for all their R&D and engineers and all that. So it isn't that electric cars are that much easier to engineer.
No, I'm sure that there's probably things that are more complex.
And you got safety you got so many different things you got to do.
Yeah. So I went out to dinner the other night, and it was kind of a fancy.
I thought you'd been fasting.
Oh, so I ordered meat, but I'm fasting like 18 hours a day is what I'm up to. So I usually have a pretty big dinner. So I went out to a restaurant out in Florida, and kind of a fancy place. Waiter comes over afterwards. He's like, "How did you find your steak, sir?" And I said, "Well, I looked at the potatoes and the steak was right next to it." The silence tells me everything I need to know.
Somewhere in there's a joke.
Yeah, so he says, how did you find your steak?
Find.
Yeah, find. Like, for the fancy places, like, find means, did you like it or not? And I took find as, how did you figure out where it was at?
Okay, Christian.
Yeah.
Let's get past that.
Yeah, when I have to explain the joke, like, it's,
This right here, you took a little look at this. What is this right here on the table? Describe this for the non-viewers, the ones that are listening.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at is what I would call a manuscript of
second draft
of the second draft of the second
book.
leadership book.
So this leadership book is 2 books
because it's way too big to be one book.
Yeah, it's 2 books together.
And it's one of the most
part 1 and 2 kind of.
It's one of the most visually appealing books that I've ever seen. And this is a rough draft, and I can just see the genius that went into this thing.
Yeah. You fingered through this earlier today.
I did.
I kind of have this. How would you say it? There's like a cleansing that happens, right?
Yeah. Like an enema or no?
Out with out with the kind of you gotta let the past go to let the new stuff in a sense.
What do they call that?
And so let the past go to let the new stuff in is what they call it. I asked for a long time. I proposed the idea of doing Irreplaceable Service Manager live as a series, as a lecture series.
Brilliant.
Nobody wanted to do it but me, basically. And you never thought it was a bad idea.
Never.
But you never fought for it.
I always thought that there was other stuff we could do in its place. So,
give me an example of something we could do in its place.
Leadership stuff.
Well, the leadership stuff's coming.
Yeah, I know.
But once this book is done, it takes a month and a half to make them.
And you've got some open time. I don't know what percentage of your time you spend on the leadership book right now, but it feels like a lot.
But I was feeling nostalgic. Like I wanted to, I don't know. I just wanted to go through it again.
Yeah. Well, plus it's just the 10-year anniversary. There's good reason to be nostalgic right now.
So the Irreplaceable Service Manager was the first book. I don't think anybody knows this, but I wrote it 3 times. So the first time I had a ghostwriter, and it was terrible. So I threw that away. I started over. Then I had a friend who'd written some books kind of give me a system. And then the third one was the one. But it took me about 3 years writing it on planes and hotels and whatever. We by the way have sold over 35,000 copies of this book. So imagine the amount of service managers in this country. And that doesn't count the ones we've given away.
That's right.
So could you describe for people that are listening, people that are watching will see this, but could you describe the cover of the first version of this book? It says, "Marvel at your service department's extraordinary results. Imagine that just 90 days from now, your service department can be performing at a level you never thought possible. Imagine creating dramatic results in customer pay sales, hours per RO, CSI, and much more." Could you describe that picture?
Okay, so the picture on the front of the book, first off, it is a hardcover book.
How old do I look in the picture? Yeah, that's probably about right.
And
I thought you were going to say 12 because I don't have a beard.
Yeah, so this is, if you ever want to see what Chris Collins looked like without a beard, there's
pictures on the internet.
But a very different feel. So the thing I like best about that is look at your little smirk.
Yeah. Also, it's airbrushed, which I don't know.
And you're wearing a suit and the arms are crossed.
Yeah, not super inviting.
No.
The new cover's better.
Yeah, the new cover's pretty awesome.
The new cover is a fist with a wrench,
Yeah. And really cool shading around the fist and all that other stuff. So it's cool. Yeah.
So this is a passion of mine that I've had to kind of sell to everybody in the sense that I want to, before the leadership book comes out, I want to go through the Irreplaceable Service Manager chapter by chapter, and I want to add some content to it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing people don't know is that part, the add content part, because you got some good stuff to put in since.
We've learned a lot since then.
Yes.
Right? But also, there's a lot of stories that I can't put in that book, or I didn't feel like it was a good idea.
There's probably a lot of stories we can't say on the air.
This is how it's going to go, okay? So are we doing it on Tuesdays?
Tuesdays.
What time on Tuesday?
9 a.m. Pacific.
So we're going to go live here, kind of similar to the way we did the tech tree.
Correct. It's the
But
same
it's just
slot.
going to be me in a chair. So the reason why I brought this out is to kind of explain how it's going to go. So I will probably have a cigar.
I like it.
And I will start every one of these episodes with a story that I couldn't tell, that I shouldn't tell, that things that I've experienced in the automotive industry. So, I mean, if you think about, I was 24 when I started going around training or fixing service departments all over in God knows where. Like a lot of small towns, a lot of farm towns, all of that, right?
You spent more than your fair share of time in Iowa.
So the way that it's going to go is we're going to start off every one of these Irreplaceable Service Manager lectures, going through the book kind of chapter by chapter with a little story, a little, hey, here's my experiences. Now I've made a list. I've had an ongoing list of stories that I want to tell, and I'm going to kind of go through some of them and just kind of, you tell me what you think. Okay. So I got a story. Dealer brought cashier to a 20-group meeting.
What?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to balance the drawer.
That same dealer fired his service manager without talking to me, and all the advisors and half of the techs left with the service manager, and he calls me. I'm in a different state, panicked, and I flew up. This is when I was young, so I was probably 25, 26 when this happened. Flew up there, no advisors and really no techs.
Oh my gosh.
So we're talking about a store that had 5 advisors. We're not talking
Went
about
from 5 to 0.
Yeah.
So they write some RO, so it's a 60, 70 RO a day.
There's
store.
a lesson in there that I'm going to talk. So every one of these has a lesson. I'm going to talk about the lesson. So 3 times I've caught office managers embezzling.
Wow. Okay.
2 of them left in handcuffs. I'm going to talk about that. And used car managers were involved in some of that.
It's got to be a dealer's worst nightmare.
Vixter firing her top advisor, and I didn't agree at the time, but a really good lesson was learned there. Hiring 38 techs in 45 days.
Okay, nice. I like it.
The time, a big dealer group, the son wanted us to help him, but he says, you got to meet my dad. It's like kind of like go kiss the ring kind of a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I show up to this conference room. There's all these managers in there. They had more managers than you would know what to do with. Dad comes in, starts yelling at me, and was just interesting. And then at some point he says, he calls me Jeff, and he thought I was Jeff Cowan.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. I wonder what he was so mad at Jeff for.
There's a story about all the cashiers leaving on Friday afternoon, but I won't. I'll leave that for behind the curtain.
So what you're saying is you recognize patterns?
One time a guy faked having cancer.
What?
Yeah. And I caught him. It's a fascinating story. I've kind of told that story before, but It's hilarious. One time a guy tried to blackmail me, but he had nothing on me. So then he just ended up threatening me.
Oh yeah, I know that story. Weren't they trying to get you to do the dirt that they would be able to blackmail you for?
They wanted me to turn all my clients over, and kind of interesting. Nothing came of it. Nobody ever
came at you with a baseball bat or anything like
nothing.
that? Yeah.
But they insinuated that was going to happen.
Interesting.
Incestual management. I got so many of those stories.
That sounds interesting.
Why?
Incestual?
Yeah. What do you think I mean by that? Wait, don't answer that. Let me just tell you, because you might take us off the rails.
It's safer. It's
like that thing where when I would go in to fix, the business or whatever, and I would say, hey, is anybody off limits? And then the guy would go, yeah, well, the manager's my son-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that.
They also call that nepotism, right?
Yeah, well, I like incestual.
Incestual's way catchier.
Tons of part stories. Parts inventory stories. One time, this started to happen a little bit, where dealerships were being designed without a back counter for the techs.
Oh, that sounds like a terrible idea.
To force them to only order on the computer and the DMS.
Okay.
There was a mentor that I paid a lot of money for a day of advice that told me not to put this book out.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's a funny story. We're going to, the second week, we're going to have Mr. X on. Can't
wait for that moment. Mr. X is super likable and polarizing all at the same time. He'll be a good treat. Good addition to this
Mr.
thing.
X and I have a lot of stories that you can't talk about.
Yeah. I have a suspicion. Some of them I know. I don't think I know all the stories, but
no,
I definitely can see that stories exist.
He's a wild man.
Yeah, but it takes a little while to uncork it.
Nobody would know that.
No.
So I'm gonna start each one with a little cup of coffee. It's too early in the day. What time did you say I gotta start? 9?
9.
So I can't do tequila that early. It's too early. But I can do a cup of coffee and a cigar. Tell a little story and then go through a lesson. I'm really excited about it.
How does somebody sign up for that?
Oh, I don't know. You tell them. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Go to the website, chriscollinsinc.com.
So you can go to the website. You'll also have a link at the bottom of this video. And in addition to that, probably the coolest thing is if you're already a client, you actually get this access to the lecture series for free.
Oh, can I tell the audience one other thing besides the fact that nobody but me really wanted to do this?
Yeah.
I also created a price that makes it affordable for service managers to pay on their own.
Anybody can do this.
Like if your dealership doesn't support you and doesn't want, I'm pricing this so you can afford it. Like I want to see you invest a little something, because otherwise you're not serious.
That's right.
But it's not
for the price of a couple of lunches.
Yeah, or one lunch.
Yeah, depending on where you eat.
Yeah. So that also.
That's great.
Because I feel like I want to impact as many people as I can on before this next chapter begins. And I also don't want to do an audiobook because I don't think the book is served with an audiobook. This is going to be better than that.
Yeah, and wouldn't you say that the best audiobooks that you've listened to, it's what goes on above and beyond the book anyways, that makes the audiobooks interesting?
There's some great ones like that.
I think there's a
Malcolm
few.
Gladwell has a couple like that that are acted out. He plays the actual clips of stuff.
Oh, yeah, where he's got the interviews. What is that one?
Oh, and then what's the one, what's the guy that...
Goggins.
That guy.
The Can't Hurt Me guy that does it's like a podcast in addition.
I love how people get fired up by that. I from the very beginning was like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not running 60 miles.
I'm all in the fact that he can do it.
There's nothing about that for me. I don't have that much childhood trauma that I gotta torture myself.
I love it.
I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, you are a super happy guy.
But you got excited about that.
Yes, I'm even now.
Matt got excited about that until he pulled a muscle running every day.
He did the 48 miles in 48 hours.
Knee surgery.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you don't think about with Goggins is that he's basically broken his body, and had to put it back together again. Like he's not, he's paid a price for what he is doing, the extreme level that he's pushing his body to prove that he can do what he can do.
As you're listening to this, you have one day to get in on the first one.
It is tomorrow.
So people will join in the middle. They'll join, but you have one day because it starts tomorrow. We'd love to see you there. I think at the time that we're recording this, there's, I don't know, a couple hundred signed up or something.
Yep. It's a full crew already, but we got room for more.
And we would love to have you there. I want to teach you how to be irreplaceable. Service, the thought behind the name of the book is service managers usually get fired 50% of the time. There's like a 50% turnover rate in service manager positions, and that's ridiculous. And the industry has never supported service managers in teaching them how to be successful. So here's your chance.
Yeah, one of the worst trained positions in the dealership.
If you don't want to ever drive home again to tell your wife that you got fired or your spouse, if you do what we're going to talk about on this, you'll be light years ahead of everybody else.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
The only thing you have to do is the work.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it just doesn't happen without a little bit of work. But everybody that runs that job, every service manager I've ever met, they're not afraid of work. It's just working on the right stuff.
It's just giving them the right information.
That's exactly right.
So I hope to see you there. Really excited about it. I don't know how long it's going to go. Some of these chapters in there could be 2 or 3 weeks if I really went deep on them.
There's a few that I think about that could be 2 or 3 weeks for sure. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
So that's it for today. We appreciate you joining us. Hope to see you in the IRSM live lecture series tomorrow. And beyond that, we hope you have a good week. We'll see you next time on Service Drive Revolution. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Service Drive Revolution. We're uploading new stuff every day, so make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, call 8333-ASK-SDR and we'll answer your question on the show. That's 8333-ASK-SDR. For special deals on our books and training, head over to offers.chriscollinsinc.com. Now that's offers.chriscollinsinc.com. I'm Chris Collins, and I'll see you in the next video.